Everybody, my breakdown UFC 237 for fightpicks.com. Once again, go to fightpicks.com, sign up with the promo code Jimmy Smith, all one word, and see how you do. And it's free and it's fun. Very, very simple. Had a good night last night. Not a great night for the Brazilians, all told. Turnaround in the main event. Let's go over the picks. Thiago Alves was the only one I missed. Maybe an emotional pick for me, a little sentimental. I thought maybe he had one more good performance in him against a strong up-and-comer who hadn't beaten any names, had looked good, not great. Maybe he could overcome this one. And Puli looked good through great combinations, very, very accurate, aggressive the entire time. Thiago Alves had his moments. Still a hard puncher, still aggressive, still did what he could, but on the defensive end almost the entire fight. Wasn't able to land that fight-ending kind of power. Not even fight-ending, but fight-turning kind of power. That was really his mark, especially in his prime at 170 pounds. When he hit you, it was like, oh, man. He could turn a fight around. If he didn't knock you out, he became the aggressor. You became defensive. You became shook. You became scared. That never happened to Puli. He was aggressive the entire time. Great combinations. Will we see more from him? Yeah. I think he has potential to be, right now, at least a 10 to 15 ranked guy, maybe move up a little bit more. We'll see what he does. He's young. He's just getting started. But Thiago Alves was the gatekeeper on the wrong side of the transaction. When you're the veteran gatekeeper, you're taking on the young bucks, doesn't always work out for you, and it didn't. Obviously went to decision, didn't get knocked out, didn't get finished, but didn't go his way. Alexander Volkanovski, Jose Aldo. I had picked Alexander Volkanovski to win by decision. That's exactly what he did. Aggressive, hard punches, kept Jose Aldo against the fence a lot of the time. Jose Aldo never really got his offense going. And the thing here that I saw was Jose Aldo still has speed. He still has power. He can still have excellent fights against top-level 145ers. Remember, Volkanovski probably in line for a title shot, if not the next one, certainly after Frankie Edgar. So we're talking about an elite guy at 145. This was not a scrub. 19-1 going in, 20-1 now. Excellent fighter, one of the best in the world. And Jose had his moments. It wasn't a blowout at all. He still has speed. He still has power. Jose wasn't throwing the kind of combinations that really defined him in his prime. He was never necessarily a one-shot guy. Of course, his flying knee or something like that. But he was a combinations guy. He kind of out-volumed people. He had speed and power, but the number of shots he threw a lot of times overwhelmed opponents. We didn't see the volume that we saw in his prime. We saw he still hit. He still has those one shots that can hurt you, but he's not putting them together like he used to. That's the disconcerting part. Did I see it's off a cliff, it's over, he needs to hang him up? No. He can still have some compelling fights, some very entertaining fights at 145. I think his run as a contender is probably finished. Unless something dramatic turns around, I think it's a better place for him to be. 3-rounders, not going through the camps that are killing his body, exciting fights, entertaining fights. I don't necessarily want to see him rematch Max Holloway again. I don't want to see him go through those 5-round wars anymore. He's earned kind of okay, let's spend the next 2 or 3 fights, 3-rounders, maybe main events of fight nights, maybe co-mains and stuff like that. He's kind of where I prefer him to be, actually. But entertaining fight, competitive, but Volkanovski wins a decision. I want to clarify a tweet that I sent out that some people had an issue with. DC, at the end of the first round, says, Volkanovski's got to feel pretty good. He won that first round. He's got to feel great about that. What I tweeted was, I disagree with DC in that you can't feel great about winning a round against Jose Aldo in Brazil unless you won really, really decisively, unless you really hurt him or cut him up or it was a blanket one-sided round, which it wasn't. It was a competitive round. Not that Brazilian judges can't be trusted or anything like that. The crowd went nuts every time Jose Aldo did anything. That's what sways judges. There was a complicated soccer statistical thing where they tried to figure out why refs have bias in soccer matches. Well, there were some matches that were played without a crowd because of disturbances that happened in the crowd, and so there were high-level soccer matches with no crowd at all. It turns out the ref bias completely went away. It's not that the refs are from the country that was playing, and so they had a bias or they liked this crowd, this team or that player, this player. It's the crowd going nuts influences us. We're social animals, and we want to please those around us. And so it's not that I distrust Brazilian judges or anything like that. Jose Aldo is in front of a very partisan crowd. And every time he did anything, they went crazy. As a judge, that influences you. It does. Now, so my point is, I thought Volkanovski won all 3 rounds. Fortunately, the judges agreed. But when you go back to the corner and you go, man, I feel great, I won that round. As a coach, I'd go, hey, we don't know that. We're not sure. You didn't blast him. You didn't really hurt him. We have to assume if you didn't really rock him, you're not going to win a round. Now, that's not the case all the time, but you have to fight and think that way. And so when I said, when DC, man, he's got to feel good going back to the corner. As his coach, I don't want him feeling good. Yes, anywhere else you probably won that round, but we have to fight as though we got to really bang this dude. If we're gonna win a round, we got to really hurt him. We have to really devastate him, or whatever. You got to keep the aggression on. That's what I meant by that tweet. And people thought that I was saying he didn't win the round. I thought he clearly won the round, but in that comfort zone that DC was talking about, you don't necessarily want your guy there. You want him to be like, oh, maybe I didn't win that round. You know, got to go up and up and up. We're in a legend's backyard here. So that's what I meant by that. Jared Cannonier, Anderson Silva. This is maybe you should hang him up. Time to go fight. I thought it would be a 3rd-round TKO. It was a 1st-round TKO. There are a lot of angles to this. The first one is Anderson Silva didn't look like Anderson Silva. He didn't. He wasn't throwing very much. His timing didn't look great. I mean, he wasn't getting beat up or anything, but his timing didn't look great. He didn't look like he was angling that much. Wasn't throwing a lot of combinations. Still tricky, but only tricky in spurts. He looked like a decent kickboxer. That's what he looked like. He didn't look like the god Anderson Silva. He looked like a decent kickboxer. Hands high, pretty much in front of Cannonier the whole time. Not doing anything crazy and exceptional. And the shot that ended it, freaky injuries happen. They happen at every level, at every age. What worries me is it wasn't a particularly devastating looking kick. It wasn't in a bad area. It was above the knee. And his leg just went out. And that concerns me. The guy's 44 years old. That's crazy. I mean, George Foreman was considered, it was a miracle he won the heavyweight title at 46, and he had 10 years off, which Anderson Silva did not. And George Foreman never relied on his speed and timing. So his speed and timing didn't look exceptional. His body looked fragile. I mean, I would have understood, you know, a devastating leg kick right to the bone or a teep kick right to the cap or something like that. It just didn't look like that kind of kick, and it was over, finished, done. That's a bad sign, that kind of wear on your body. And I think Anderson Silva is there right now. And, of course, there was talk, you know, he's signing a contract extension, wants to fight a lot longer. That's what, 1 win in 8 fights now? That's not the direction you want to go. I won't even get into BJ Penn. But there were some fighters tonight that I thought that should be it. Last night was, you know, Anderson Silva didn't look great and then out with an injury on a kick that in his prime he shrugs off or doesn't take. He just steps his leg back and you don't land that thing. Different guy now. And I don't want to see Anderson Silva become that guy. So Jared Cannonier, I thought 3rd round TKO was 1st round TKO. Main event, Rose Namajunas, Jessica Andrade. For a round, Rose Namajunas looked like the next world beater. That she was going to not just win, but hold the title until she decided she didn't want it anymore. Looked fantastic. Great combinations. Excellent jab. Very accurate. Opened up a cut around the eye of Jessica Andrade. Everything was going her way. She got picked up and dropped off a Kimura attempt, which was a sign of things to come. In round 2, Jessica Andrade able to close distance finally. Got a high crotch. Rose Namajunas went for a Kimura, held on too long. The problem with the Kimura is you commit both hands. The grip is like this. So you're committing both hands at the same time. You can't defend yourself. So when she picked her up and dropped her, couldn't put a hand up to stop it. That was it. Knockout loss, 2nd round. Couple of thoughts on that. People ask me, isn't that an illegal spike? If you hang on to a submission and essentially spike yourself because you're holding on, it's not the opponent's problem. So legally, that's not a spike. Some people were asking me about that. It was a high crotch, lift him up and turn him. That's what you're supposed to do. If my opponent holds on to something to the point where they turn upside down, that's not my issue. So that's why it wasn't illegal. Dan Hardy and I did the post-fight breakdown for SiriusXM. Great show. Love working with Dan Hardy. Dude's awesome. But it was a fun show to do. And one of the things we talked about is Rose Namajunas, had she won that fight, you'd sit there, look at the top fighters and go, man, Rose probably beats all of these. Or at least she showed a skill set where she had to be the favorite in all these fights. Jessica Andrade won, yet her striking looked basic, almost like it had regressed. Always moving forward, not moving her head. She was just walking right into punches, reaching for shots. Not really a lot of improvements in her stand-up game. And her wrestling outside of the 2 slams, looked good, but not, Tatiana Suarez is a great wrestler. She's going to have trouble with her. So there are so many more questions now. Jessica Andrade won, but it wasn't a great performance all around. So there's so many questions about, could Joanna Jędrzejczyk beat her, become champ again? How does she do against Tatiana Suarez, who's not going to allow the kind of wrestling techniques that cost Rose Namajunas? So she won, but in a sense, because of her performance, there are a lot more question marks than if Rose Namajunas, who was looking fantastic, had won. And Rose, of course, it worried me before the fight that she gave an interview and said, being champion doesn't define me, almost like it was a burden, and she seemed a little relieved when she lost. That bothers me, that her heart wasn't really in being champion. Well, you got to put your heart in it to win it again, and then, she's young. Dan and I talked about it. Maybe things change, and this loss, she will teach her how much she enjoyed being champion. She'll have a fire going forward. You need that fire burning all the time to be champion and to stay champion. And if she doesn't have that, is she going to climb the hill again? And if she climbs the hill, can she keep it? So it raised a lot, to me, kind of mental, emotional questions about Rose Namajunas. Her technique looked flawless right up until the Kimura. But that idea that she seemed relieved to not be champion anymore. Champion is something you got to want. You got to desire. Joanna Jędrzejczyk, she wanted it and desired it and desires it now. I'm sure she is foaming at the mouth right now, wanting a shot with Andrade, because Andrade looks so vulnerable on the feet, and that's where Joanna Jędrzejczyk shines. So I thought it would be Jessica Andrade. I thought it would be by decision. 115, you don't see a lot of finishes. So anyway, it ends up being a second round KO TKO. So the only one I missed was Thiago Alves. Good night for me. But go to fightpigs.com, sign up, promo code Jimmy Smith, and see how you do. I'll be checking in before the next UFC and talking about it, giving my picks. Enjoy.